Welcome, everyone. My name is Ali Warsi, and I will be your trainer today. This is the File, Find, and Share training for managing your digital content. I work with the Content Intelligence team under Information Management. Have you ever finished working on a file and thought, I need to share this file with my team, but weren't sure the right way to do so? The purpose of today's training is to enable you to effectively organize and manage your content in a digital environment. So the training will be broken down into two parts. The first portion will be the understanding portion, understanding in theory. The second portion will be more of the functional training. So working with Microsoft 365, going back to our information management fundamentals of filing, finding, and sharing. You can find links to the videos for each of those below as well. So diving into the understanding portion. Before we talk a little bit about the technology, I wanted to take some time to discuss our journey and how we got here. So the digital strategy was brought forth in order to ensure alignment between the region's term of council priorities and its technologies. There was a need to satisfy the shifting expectations of employees and residents towards more of a collaborative experience. So from the digital strategy came the enterprise content proposal, in which one of the activities were the compliance assessment on Office 365. Basically to see if the Office 365 suite met the Region Appeals requirements to serve as its official records repository, in theory replacing EIM, which was our existing official records repository. So that may raise some questions with regards to what's going to happen to our old applications, such as EIM, the network drives, and Domino Doc. So there's currently a migration plan underway. We are dealing with content in a priority sequence with records and things like that taking higher priority. That does not mean, however, that you aren't able to put in a request for sort of a mini migration. We would be happy to assist with smaller moves if you're just trying to, test out the new technology and just get your feet wet and try to just work with it. That can be facilitated via a 40/20 ticket, and just address the content intelligence team, and you need help moving content from one repository to another, and a specialist will be happy to assist you. So, yep, that basically covers sort of our journey and how we got here. The compliance assessment that was done did deem that the Office 365 suite met the region's requirements, and that's sort of how we got here as we transition to SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. All right, so what is Microsoft 365? So Microsoft 365 is a suite of applications. You may be familiar with the Office applications such as Word and PowerPoint. A great benefit of being on this platform is that there is great integration between the applications. For example, when you go to save a document, you will notice all of the additional abilities to save to one of the repositories within the application suite. Talk a little bit about that more, but that's just one of the great things that it offers. For the purpose of this training, as mentioned, we will be focusing on just 3 of the applications within the suite, namely Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. All right. So before we talk about the intended use of each of the technologies, it's very important to understand the similarities and differences between the applications. So the best way to describe the Teams application is a collaborative tool that sort of ties in all of the other applications. This can be seen as a one-stop shop, as where you click into the Teams application, you can navigate through both OneDrive and SharePoint, as well as many other things, such as organizing meetings, private chats. Many people saw Teams as a replacement to Skype. Well, I'm here to tell you it's much, much more than that. And if used effectively, it can really make a difference in, the organization and management of your content, as well as just your day-to-day activities as well. So the takeaway from that, Teams application, a collaborative tool. Now to OneDrive and SharePoint, they share similarities in that both of them, their general purpose is to file or house your documents and content. So they can be seen as sort of like a filing cabinet you see here. So keep in mind that when working in Teams, you will be working on documents that either sit in OneDrive or SharePoint, as these are records repositories. Now, the distinction between what sort of documents should go to OneDrive and what documents should go to SharePoint can be described as personal or private content to be stored in OneDrive. This is typically non-collaborative in nature, such as resumes, employment letters, things specific to you. Many of you probably remember your My Documents, or you probably still have My Documents, but this is something similar to that, your personal or your private content, okay? Anything related to your role or your team would fall under the organizational and service content. This includes records as well. So just referring back to the compliance assessment that was done, although we have two possibilities to file into, we had to determine one as our official records repository, and that is SharePoint, as the functionality in SharePoint is better suited to serve as our records repository. We have additional things like metadata that is not available in OneDrive. And for those who don't know what metadata is, it's just like tags, so you can appropriately tag your content to make it easier to find. So yeah, the main takeaway for the intended use of technology is just understanding the difference between the three applications, as well as knowing what to file where. So we now know that the Teams application is a collaboration tool that allows you to access, edit, view your documents that sit in both SharePoint and OneDrive, which we'll get to a little bit more into the second portion of the training. And the filing systems are just that. They are meant to file or house your content. Okay. So really, that is all that we need to discuss here. Moving forward, understanding site types. So we talked a little bit about the difference between the three applications. Now let's talk a little bit about how the structure is built on the back end. Okay, so many of you are familiar with the Teams application. You will notice you may already be a part of one or more teams here under the Teams tab. This is where you would go to access any of your channels or subfolders to have discussions with your team. You can also share files and collaborate on files with the team. So this Files tab, this is actually showing you files that sit in SharePoint. So any team that you see here has a team site associated with it. So for my sectional team, the Org Content Intelligence team, I have a specific SharePoint site for this team. Within that SharePoint site, I then have folders to contain all my content, okay? If I wanted to navigate to that SharePoint site, I can do so by clicking on any of the folders, going to the Files tab, and opening in SharePoint, okay? This will take me to the SharePoint site of that general folder. If I wanted to go back a layer to see my other folders, I am able to click the Documents tab, and you'll notice all of the folders that were visible in the Teams application are here on SharePoint. So Teams is actually just a collaborative tool that is allowing you to access your files. So this is all done on the SharePoint side. If you wanted to navigate your files in OneDrive, you can actually do so through the Teams application as well, navigating to the Files tab here and going to OneDrive. And this will allow you to open in OneDrive similarly if you needed to. So as I mentioned, one-stop shop coming in here for all things related Microsoft Office 365. I'm able, within my Teams application, to navigate to both OneDrive as well as SharePoint through any of my teams. So now that we sort of have that understanding of how the back end of the Teams site works, there are actually two different types of sites that can be requested. You can request a collaboration site or a process/service site. So I'll explain the difference between the two. The collaboration site, as I just showed you, an example would be an organizational site, a project site, committee and working group, all fall under collaboration sites. So when a request is submitted for a collaboration site, a team is given for that site. So you will see a team populate under teams here for any collaboration sites. So all of the sites that you're seeing here, org content intelligence, PRJ content migration, CWG, file find and share, all of these represent different sites, different collaboration sites. Okay, so collaboration sites have a team associated with them, and SharePoint is on the back end, as we now know, for all the folders sit in SharePoint. Okay, so the difference between a collaboration site and a service site is that a process or service site does not get a team associated with it. A process or service site, its primary purpose is to contain or house your records. So finalized records that have are in accordance with our retention bylaws, have an RSI applied to them. We have some more information on how to tag documents and folders with the appropriate RSIs in the second portion of the training under filing. So that's the main distinction between the different site types. So an example of each of the different collaboration sites. So for an organization, by default, we created all of the department and divisional team sites. However, sections were left for supervisors to request themselves for their own teams. Okay, projects simply have a beginning and an end. Committees and working groups are similar in that they don't necessarily have to fall under the org chart. This can be a collection of individuals that are cross-departmental or cross-divisional, and they may need to collaborate for whatever reason. An example of this may be the Water and Wastewater Health and Safety Committee, or the communicable diseases, their admins, all the CD admins, they may have a need to collaborate. Some examples of the process or service sites. For service records, you may have client files. That's typically one of the main requests for service sites. You also have processes such as the capital budget for 2021 as an example of the different sites. So the main takeaway here from this side is that there is two different sites that can be requested. One is a collaboration site and one is a process or service site. The main difference being one is for records and one is for more of a collaborative Teams experience, as you're requesting a team with a SharePoint site on the back end. Whereas on a service site, you're simply requesting just a SharePoint site with no team associated with it. And that's pretty much it for understanding the different site types. To access the site request form, the simplest way to do so would be to navigate to Pathways. This can be done via your internet browser. If I open a new tab here, you will notice Pathways. On the left-hand side, under Quick Links, you have the team/site request form. Okay, so I'll take a little bit of time just to discuss the form itself. You will notice that, as mentioned in the sharing tutorial video, it is mandatory that you need to fill not only a primary site owner, but a secondary site owner as well. And this is due to the fact that in case you're away and some modifications need to be made to the team, whether it's adding or removing members, there should be a backup in place. Okay, we talked about the different site types, whether you're requesting an org site, project site, committee or working group, or a service site. So if you remember on the previous slide, these three would fall under the collaboration sites. They would all get a team associated with them. This, however, would get just a SharePoint site, which can then be linked to a team down the road. Okay, so after making your selection, you have this little tag icon that indicates that you need to make a selection as opposed to typing. So if I click the tags, I will be able to select the appropriate department for my org team. If I just choose DNIS, I can then make another selection for a division. Let's say I will go to information management. And then I can specify a specific section. If none are applicable, I don't need to write any. There we go. Sorry. Content intelligence. Okay, so this is a site that's being requested, tagged it down to the section level. We also have a field here to indicate content to be stored. So I can specify what type of content is going to go in the site. This is a good indicator for us who receive these requests to see if the right selection has been made. For example, if somebody is requesting an org site, we know that client files do not belong in an org site. That would need a special service site to classify it as a record. So if we see this come up under documents that you're trying to file in your org site, that may give us a red flag and say, hey, maybe you need a combination of both a collaboration site as well as a service site. So please try to fill these in accurately. It does make our job easier and more effective because we can make better recommendations that way. And that pretty much sums up the request form as well. And that is all. Thank you for your time, everyone.